There are towns in North Carolina where the government owns more land than the people do, and nobody's talking about them on purpose. This is the list of the 11 quietest places to live in the Carolinas. The kind of towns real estate agents won't show you because there's no commission in selling silence. We've got a town where the world's computer chips secretly come from. An island you can only reach by boat, where wild ponies outnumber traffic lights. A village of 120 people guarding a lake so clear scuba divers travel across the country for it. And a county that is 68% national forest, where your nearest neighbor might genuinely be a bear. Smash that like button now, or I'm telling everyone your city's population and letting them move next door to you. Let's count it down. Quick thing before we start. If you enjoy videos about escaping the crowds and finding somewhere sane to live, do yourself a favor and subscribe. This channel drops new places to live, retirement escapes, and honest real estate breakdowns every single week, and the good spots go fast once people find out. Alright, number 11. Salem number 11 takes us across the border because I promised you mostly North Carolina, but South Carolina had one town too good to leave out. Meet Salem, South Carolina. Population 120. That is not a typo. 120 people tucked into less than 1 square mile in the Blue Ridge foothills of Oconee County. Here's why Salem earns its spot on a North Carolina list. It sits right at the edge of the Jockasay Gorge, a stretch of wild, undeveloped mountain land that National Geographic once named one of the last great places on Earth. And Salem is the gateway to Lake Jockasay, a deep, cold, glass-clear mountain lake fed by underwater waterfalls that pour straight off the gorge walls. The water is so clean that scuba divers drive in from other states just to see the bottom. Devil's Fork State Park, right outside town, is the only public way onto that lake. And this is the part that keeps Salem quiet forever. The land all around it is owned by the state and the power company, which is a fancy way of saying almost nobody is allowed to build here. No sprawl, no strip malls creeping in. Ever. Picture the actual day. You wake up, the fog is still sitting on the water, and you put a boat in before anyone else is awake because there's basically no one else to compete with. You fish for trout and bass in water that's cleaner than what most people drink. In spring, the rare Oconee bell wildflower blooms in the gorge, and botanists literally make pilgrimages to see it. That's your neighborhood. Homes near Salem run around $480,000, which sounds steep until you realize you're buying a front row seat to one of the cleanest lakes in the country. And Oconee County has some of the lowest property taxes in the entire state. The catch is real though, there is basically no shopping in town. Your nearest grocery run is Seneca, a few miles down the road, and Walhalla is about 10 miles away. If you need a hospital, nightlife, or a coffee shop that stays open past sunset, Salem will politely laugh at you. But if your dream is a boat, a lake, and total silence, 120 neighbors is exactly the right number. 10. Hot Springs. Number 10. Back into North Carolina and straight into a town with no traffic light. Hot Springs, population 520, sitting inside the Pisgah National Forest right where the French Broad River meets Spring Creek. The mountains basically wrap around this town like a pair of cupped hands. Hot Springs has a claim almost no town in America can make. The Appalachian Trail doesn't pass near it. The trail runs directly down the main street. Through hikers walk through the middle of town on Bridge Street, which gives the whole place this constant, gentle trickle of wandering strangers with enormous backpacks and 1,000-mile stairs. And yes, there really are natural hot mineral springs here, the only ones in North Carolina. So after a brutal day on the trail, you can literally soak in warm mineral water beside the river while the sun goes down over the mountains. It is about as close to a fairy tale as a 500-person town gets. Living here means slowing your whole nervous system down. The pace is set by the river and the seasons, not by a calendar. You'll know the diner staff by name, inside a week. You'll wave at the same 12 cars. Max Patch, one of the most famous grassy balds in the region, is a short drive away, and it's the kind of place people propose on. Now, the honest part, because this channel doesn't lie to you. Hot Springs is tiny and mostly quiet, but for its size, it gets surprisingly busy in the warm months, with hikers and rafters passing through. And I have to be straight with you. Hurricane Helene hit this area hard in 2024, and Spring Creek flooding did serious damage to the town. Recovery is genuinely ongoing, so if this place calls to you, check the current situation, street by street before you fall in love. Asheville is about 40 minutes away when you need actual civilization. Which brings me to a warning I need you to hear because everyone online is going to tell you to move somewhere else entirely. They'll say move to the famous pretty mountain towns, Highlands, Cashiers, Blowing Rock, Banner Elk. And they are beautiful, I'll give them that. They are also traps. The typical house in Highlands runs north of $900,000. In Cashiers, homes have been selling around $900,000 and up, with the average pushing well past $1 million and change. Blowing Rock has about 1,500 full-time residents, and then roughly 8,000 summer people who show up and eat every parking spot in town. Banner Elk throws a worm festival that pulls in over 20,000 visitors in a single weekend. 20,000 people. For a worm. If you hate crowds, those towns will betray you the second the leaves change color and the tour buses arrive, so we're skipping them on purpose. Back to the real list. Number 9. Burnsville, North Carolina, up in Yancey County. This one's for people who want quiet but still want a town square where things occasionally quietly happen. Burnsville has a classic little Appalachian town center built around a green, an actual sense of community, and it sits right in the shadow of Mount Mitchell, the highest peak east of the Mississippi River at 6,600 feet. On a clear morning, you can see it from town, still capped with mist. The numbers here are refreshingly friendly. Cost of living sits well below the national average, and the median home hovers around $281,000, which in today's market feels almost imaginary. That's the kind of number that makes accountants cry, in a good way. Burnsville pulls in a lot of retirees and remote workers who want fresh mountain air, low crime, and neighbors who actually wave when they drive past. There's a small art scene, a few good restaurants, and the sort of Friday night calm that city people forget exists. What makes Burnsville special is that it threads a needle most of these towns can't. It's genuinely peaceful, but it's not lonely. You get community without congestion. There's enough town to feel like a town and enough mountain around it that you never feel boxed in. It's quiet, but it's a warm kind of quiet, not a spooky one. For a lot of you watching, this is probably the most realistic entry on the whole list. One more thing worth knowing about Burnsville. Because it's a real county seat with actual services, you're not completely cut off the way you are in some of the tinier spots on this list. And there's a grocery store you don't have to plan an entire expedition around, a handful of good restaurants, and a walkable center where you can grab a coffee and actually run into people you know by name. For a lot of buyers, that balance is the whole game. You want quiet, but you don't want to feel stranded the first time you get a flat tire or need a prescription filled. Burnsville threads that needle better than almost anywhere else in these mountains, which is exactly why it keeps showing up on lists like this one. By the way, if you're already mentally packing a bag and pricing out moving trucks, hit that subscribe button so the next escape plan finds you before the crowds do. Number 8. Number 8. Swansboro time to hit the coast because quiet doesn't only live in the mountains. Swansboro, North Carolina calls itself the friendly city by the sea, and it's the coastal town almost everyone drives right past on their way to the flashier, more expensive beaches down the road. Swansboro is small, walkable, and stacked right where the White Oak River empties into the intracoastal waterway. About 4,000 people live in a tiny footprint of just over 2 square miles. You've got a genuinely historic waterfront downtown with old storefronts and seafood joints, kayaking right off the docks, and Hammocks Beach State Park nearby, where you take a boat out to reach a completely undeveloped barrier island called Bear Island. No cars, no crowds, just dunes and ocean. And the Croatan National Forest sits basically next door, so you've got both saltwater and deep pine forest within minutes. Here's the daily rhythm. Morning coffee on the waterfront watching the boats come in. An afternoon paddle up the river. Fresh shrimp for dinner from a place that has existed longer than you've been alive. Homes run around $380,000, and the cost of living actually sits a bit below the national average, which is almost unheard of for a waterfront town in this country. Now, the honest catch, because I always give it to you, Swansboro is peaceful most of the year, but it does throw festivals, and on those weekends, the little downtown fills up and parking becomes a full contact sport. It's also fairly close to Camp Lejeune, so there's some military area traffic in the region. And like anywhere on this coast, hurricanes are part of the deal, so factor insurance into your math. But stacked against the packed, overbuilt beach towns just down the highway, Swansboro is a whisper. Number 7. Saluda, North Carolina. If a town could be a warm cup of tea on a cold morning, this is it. Saluda sits in the Blue Ridge foothills, and its entire one-street downtown is a National Historic District that has barely changed since 1878. You're walking through a town that looks almost exactly like it did before the automobile was invented. Wooden storefronts, a general store, the kind of place where the word bustle simply does not apply. Saluda has a genuinely weird superpower most people have never heard of. It sits in something called a thermal belt, a strange pocket of the mountains where cold air drains away and the weather stays noticeably milder than the areas right around it. So you get real mountain scenery without the harshest, iciest mountain winters. Around town, you've got the Green River Gorge, a string of waterfalls, and Lake Summit, plus a new rail trail being built on the old Saluda grade, which was once the steepest standard gauge mainline railroad in the country. It's a quiet magnet for artists, potters, and nature people who want peace, and a porch and not much else. Life in Saluda moves at the speed of a front porch conversation. You know the shop owners. You know the seasons by which wildflowers are out. The whole town practically hibernates in the best way. It's the kind of place where nothing happens, and that is precisely the amenity. And that thermal belt isn't just a fun trivia fact. It genuinely changes daily life. You get spring earlier and hold on to fall longer than the town's just a few miles up the mountain. Gardeners love it. Retirees with achy joints love it even more. It's a small edge, but over a lifetime of winters, small edges add up. The trade-off is money and size. Saluda got discovered quietly, and home prices have climbed. You're often looking at well over $400,000 now, sometimes considerably higher for anything with a view. It's small, it's not cheap, and if you need a big box store, you're driving to Hendersonville. But for the person who wants charm, mild weather, and a town that flatly refuses to change with the times, Saluda is a quiet little dream. Number 6. Number 6 is my favorite absurd fact in this entire video, and I have been waiting to tell you about it. Spruce Pine, North Carolina. Population around 2,500, sitting in the Blue Ridge Mountains about 3 miles from the Blue Ridge Parkway. On the surface, it's a sweet, sleepy, extremely affordable mountain town. Homes here can genuinely be found under $240,000, and the cost of living is one of the lowest on this entire list. A normal person can actually afford to live here, which alone makes it rare. But here's the secret this quiet little town keeps. The mines in the hills around Spruce Pine produce some of the purest quartz found anywhere on the planet. And that ultra-pure quartz is essential for making the special crucibles used to produce the silicon inside nearly every computer chip in the world. Read that again. The tiny mountain town where you can buy a house for $200,000 is quietly holding up the entire global electronics industry. Your phone, your laptop, the exact device you are watching this video on right now, all of it traces back through a supply chain to a handful of mines in a town most people have never heard of. If those mines stopped, the tech world would feel it. And the people who live there just call it home. Beyond the quartz, Spruce Pine is a genuinely lovely place to live. There's a gem and mineral festival every year, low crime, a walkable little downtown, and Asheville about 50 miles away for when you want a real night out. The honest note, again, is Helene. Mitchell County took serious damage in 2024, so verify recovery before you commit to anything. But a $200,000 mountain home in the town that secretly runs the tech world. That is a story worth driving out to see for yourself. Number 5. Marshall, North Carolina. Population 777 and possibly the most dramatically located town on this entire list. Marshall is crammed into a razor-thin river valley along the French Broad River, so tight that locals have described it for generations as a block wide, a mile long, sky high, and hell deep. Say that out loud. A block wide and hell deep. The river is on one side, a sheer mountain wall on the other, and the whole town is the narrow sliver squeezed in between them. In recent years, Marshall quietly reinvented itself into an arts town. It became the kind of place with a cool, unpretentious main street, galleries, live music spilling out of small venues, good coffee, and a creative crowd of people who fled the noise and rent of bigger cities. And it's only about 19 miles from Asheville, which means you get deep, real quiet with actual culture a short drive away. That combination is incredibly hard to find, and it's why people who discover Marshall tend to get quietly obsessed with it. I can't sugarcoat this one, and I won't. Marshall sits right on the river at river level, and Hurricane Helene devastated the downtown in 2024, destroying buildings and damaging the town hall itself. The community is rebuilding, and honestly, the spirit down there has been genuinely inspiring to watch. But this is a place where you absolutely, no exceptions, research the current state of things and the flood risk before you even think about moving. Quiet, artistic, resilient, and recovering. That's Marshall, told straight. All right, quick honesty check on why this list even exists, because it matters. Every single town we've covered so far has one thing in common. They stay quiet because they're a little inconvenient. No mall, no airport next door, no 12-lane highway roaring past. That inconvenience is not a bug. It is the entire point. The moment a place becomes easy to get to and easy to build in, the crowds arrive, the prices explode, and the silence you moved there for quietly dies. So the real skill here isn't finding a pretty town. Pretty towns are everywhere. The skill is finding a pretty town that nobody has figured out how to ruin yet. And if that idea just made your shoulders drop about 2 inches, this is exactly the channel you want in your corner. I go hunt these places down every single week so you don't have to spend your weekends doom-scrolling real estate listings. Subscribe and let me do the searching. Now let's get into the seriously empty ones. Number 4. Bakersville, North Carolina. We are getting properly small now. Bakersville is technically a county seat, which usually implies a courthouse, some bustle, maybe a little downtown energy. Except this county seat has somewhere between 400 and 700 people, depending on who's doing the counting, packed into less than a single square mile. It is the actual definition of sleepy. You could nap through the busiest hour of its busiest day. Bakersville sits near Roan Mountain, which is famous for 2 things. 1, its natural rhododendron gardens, which explode into color every June and draw quiet crowds of flower people. And 2, its wide-open grassy balds, these treeless, rolling mountaintop meadows that honestly look like they belong in Scotland or Ireland, not the American South. Down the road is Penland, a legendary craft school that has filled this whole area with working potters, weavers, glassblowers, and metalsmiths for a century. So despite being tiny, the region has a real, deep, creative soul running through it. The median home hovers around $230,000, and the median age skews older, so this is a calm, settled, artistic kind of place, rather than a young party town. What you're trading away is convenience, plain and simple. Amenities are limited. You will drive for a lot of things. And like its Mitchell County neighbors, Bakersville felt Helene's impact in 2024. But if your ideal Saturday is a mountain hike, an afternoon in a pottery studio, and a silence so complete you can hear the wind move through the trees, Bakersville has been waiting for you this whole time. Number 3. Ocracoke, North Carolina. We go back to the water, but this time you're going to need a boat to get there. Ocracoke, North Carolina. An island at the far southern tip of the Outer Banks, with a year-round population of under 800 people and, most importantly, no bridge. None. The only ways onto Ocracoke are by ferry or a very small plane. And that single geographic fact is the entire reason this place stays magical while the rest of the Outer Banks gets paved over. Ocracoke Village has no chain stores, no high-rises, no traffic lights, 0. It has miles of protected Cape Hatteras National Seashore beaches that are regularly ranked among the best in America, a herd of genuinely wild ponies that have roamed the island for centuries, the oldest continuously operating lighthouse in North Carolina, and some of the darkest, most star-choked night skies you will find anywhere on the East Coast. The locals even have their own centuries-old accent, a brogue called Hoy-Toyder that you will not hear anywhere else in the country. Step off that ferry and it genuinely feels like a place that time simply forgot to update. Now, the fine print, because Ocracoke absolutely earns an asterisk. In the summer, those ferries bring in thousands of day trippers and vacationers, and for a couple of months, the quiet gets genuinely loud. But here's the trick the crowds will never understand. By late September, every last one of them packs up and vanishes, and the island goes quiet for 9 long, glorious off-season months. If you can live with island prices, homes here run well over $500,000, plus the ferry logistics for literally everything you own, plus real hurricane risk. then Ocracoke offers you a flavor of isolation that you simply cannot buy anywhere on the mainland. This is the Exit Plan Island. Number 2. Oriental, North Carolina. Now we're down to the 2 quietest places on the entire list, and this one has the hard numbers to back it up. Oriental, North Carolina. Population around 900, sitting on the wide, calm silver waters of the Noosa River, which is nearly 5 miles across at the point where it opens up into the Pamlico Sound. When you stand on the waterfront here, the far shore is just a thin line on the horizon. It feels more like an ocean than a river. Here is the stat that shoves Oriental all the way up to number 2. It has roughly 38 people per square mile. 38! That makes this little town less crowded than more than 90% of America. Let that number just breathe for a second. You could live in a place that is emptier than 9 out of every 10 spots in this entire country and still have a working town around you. Oriental calls itself the sailing capital of North Carolina, and it flat out earns the title. With a working harbor, a marina packed with masts, regattas on the weekends, and sailboats gliding silently past your window, basically all day long. And here's the modern twist. Around a quarter of the people here work from home, so Oriental has quietly become a little haven for remote workers who traded the office and the commute for a dock and a horizon. The honest trade-offs are exactly what you'd expect. Oriental is remote. The nearest real town is New Bern, about 25 miles away, and there is no hospital in town, which is a serious consideration as you get older. Homes run around $480,000, and the cost of living sits a bit above the state average. But understand what you are actually paying for here. Space, water, stillness, and 38 neighbors per square mile who, by definition, all moved here wanting the exact same quiet that you do. And number 1, Robbinsville, North Carolina. The single quietest place to live in this entire video. Robbinsville, North Carolina. Population 597 and actually shrinking. It's the county seat of Graham County, way out in the far, far western corner of the state, so remote it's practically leaning on Tennessee. And here is the fact that wins at the top spot without even breaking a sweat. 68% of Graham County is Nantahala National Forest. Almost 7 out of every 10 acres in the entire county are protected federal wilderness that can never ever be developed. The whole county holds only about 8,000 people, spread across all that land, and Robbinsville itself is under half a square mile of actual town. So understand the picture correctly. This is not a town that happens to be near nature. This is a tiny human clearing that exists completely surrounded by nature on nature's terms, with the forest pressing in on every side. Right around Robbinsville, you've got Lake Santitla with its clear, cold water, the massive Fontana Lake, the rushing Kiowa River, and the Joyce Kilmer Memorial Forest, home to towering old-growth poplars, some of them so wide it takes several people holding hands to reach around them that have been standing for over 400 years. Those trees were alive before this country existed. The famous Cherahela Skyway winds out of town, and the legendary Tail of the Dragon, with its hundreds of curves, is close enough for the driving fanatics. This is about as far from a crowd as you can physically get while still, technically, living in a town with an address. But I owe you the complete truth on number 1 because it's the most important entry of all. Robbinsville is remote in a way that has real daily consequences. It's about 2 hours from Asheville over mountain roads. Jobs are genuinely scarce, the local economy has struggled for a long time, and healthcare, real shopping, and an airport all mean a serious, committed drive. This is not a soft, gentle retirement fantasy where the hard parts are hidden. It is a place for people who are truly self-sufficient, fully remote, or fully retired, and who want the mountains and the forest and the silence more than they want any kind of convenience. But if that is honestly you, then understand this. There is almost nowhere in the entire Carolinas quieter than Robbinsville. The Bears, and there are many, would agree. So there is your list. 11 places where the traffic is light, the sky is dark, the rent is a rumor, and the crowd simply forgot to show up. The real question was never which of these towns is the prettiest, because they're all beautiful in their own way. The real question is how much silence you can actually handle before you quietly start to miss the very noise you claim to hate. That's the honest test. Most people fail it. A few of you won't. If this video helped you plot your escape, do the 2-second thing that keeps this whole channel alive. Like the video so the algorithm shows it to more fellow crowd haters, and subscribe so you never run out of quiet places to disappear to. I find these towns every single week, and the next one I cover might just be the one with your name already on the mailbox. I'll see you in the next one.